Joining me now are three of the country's best political analysts. They are all CNN contributors. Republican strategist and former White House political director Ed Rollins, syndicated columnist and professor at Lehman College Miguel Perez, and Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. You know, it was very weird today because Obama had to share the front page with Dick Cheney, a very unusual juxtaposition. Ed, did Mr. Cheney gain anything out of this exchange?
Sure, he got to defend himself. I think Democrats got the speech they wanted out of the president, and I think Republicans got the speech they wanted, defending the past. I don't want to stay and fight on that issue, but I think Cheney helped himself immeasurably yesterday, and I think he basically laid out our side very effectively.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'd actually like, for the benefit of our audience, to play some back-to-back quotes from both of these speeches and let them just get a snippet.
I categorically reject the assertion that these are the most effective means of interrogation.
They were legal, essential, justified, successful, and the right thing to do.
Now, this issue of torture, Miguel, is this something that the American people really care about, or is this a political debate?
I really care. I really think waterboarding is torture, and in the 21st century, anyone who still tries to deny that is crazy. I was just telling my friend Robert here before we went on the air that I was just in Colombia, in the Palace of the Inquisition, 17th century. They used to torture people. The first thing you see there is how they waterboarded people. So this is nothing new. This has been going on for a long, long time, and it is torture, and anyone who tries to defend torture in this late game is absolutely crazy.
Robert, you know, but people are very entrenched about their feelings about this. Have we moved the debate forward or have we just resurrected the debate?
Well, I think in many ways it's very healthy to have this debate resurrected. You know, Democrats don't like to acknowledge it, but every time you have the leader of the former government, Dick Cheney, sharing the same split screen with the President of the United States, that's a PR coup for Cheney. But the bottom line is, it also opened up a discussion and a debate, and I think Barack Obama, with his speech, sees back the argument, sees the momentum. He was able to make the case as to why closing Guantanamo wasn't a matter of national security. He made a very compelling argument. In fact, now that he's given his speech, people are now doing a look at the Cheney-Bush years and realizing how it did jeopardize our national security.
There's one other very valid point. Cable television has now played a role that parties used to play. This would not have been a side-by-side 10 years ago. It would not have made the network news. But the fact that CNN could cover it, the Fox or anybody else could cover it, made it a national story for both sides. And it just shows the power and the role that cable television now plays in American politics.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, because it really did generate a good bit of attention. You know, let's talk about President Obama's plan to incarcerate terrorists in the federal prison system. Now, you have the not in my backyard crowd who don't want it. You also have the argument that mixing terrorists with the federal prison population might have some effect on the inmates there. But then the counter argument is that the federal prisons are safe and secure. This is a very tough thing to call. Robert, what are your thoughts on it?
You know, Secretary Gates pointed out, our Secretary of Defense, we have terrorists in prisons, supermax prisons, throughout our country. And in fact, there has never been anyone who's ever broken out of a supermax prison. Clearly, this issue can be addressed. The idea that the United States can't address this issue and can't provide proper security is an absurd argument. Obviously, Vice President Cheney played the fear card and, very frankly, got to some Democrats. When you saw that vote in the Senate, that was a reflection. That was about no Democrat wanted to be Willie Horton, if you will, or face a tough commercial. But bottom line is, I think President Obama's speech was able to put this issue in the proper perspective.
Miguel, you're shaking your head.
No, look, bottom line is that Obama did not have a plan. He still doesn't have a plan. He had a wonderful speech, but he still does not deliver a plan. So, you know, we have this impasse, and nobody's coming up with a solution. And it's about time that this administration, since the day one they've been saying they're going to close down Guantanamo, fine, how are you going to do it? Where are you going to put these people? Give us a solution. Now, another thing that I would be remiss as a Cuban American not to mention, that in Cuba, in the island of Cuba, compared to the rest of the political prisons in Cuba, Guantanamo is a luxury hotel. So, you know, let's treat this in the right context, because, you know, we're getting overworked about the mistreatment of these people who are really well treated there.
The truth of the matter is the whole torture issue. There were three men, and I agree with you. I'm against torture. I'm against waterboarding. Right. There were three men, one of whom was the mastermind of the terrorist that was the bombing. Secondly, the people who were in there, the term Gitmo is a bad term today, but the idea that this created the Al-Qaeda or this basically increased the Taliban and all the rest of it is just bunk. The truth of the matter is both candidates, McCain and Obama, both said they'd shut it down if they got elected president, but you do have to have a plan. Right at this point in time, with everything else the president has going, I wouldn't take this fight on. I'd leave it there.
He's made a commitment to close it. He said by the end of the year he's going to produce a plan. And I think when the Secretary of Defense makes the argument, Secretary Gates, that that the Guantanamo Bay prison has become a recruiting site for Al-Qaeda, I think that says something that we have to seriously address. And I think it's not just about the fact that we're holding these 240 individuals there in prison, but that this has become a rallying cry for Al-Qaeda throughout the world.
The truth of the matter is that when you really look deeply into Al-Qaeda, there's only about 200 people in the world that they've identified as, quote, Al-Qaeda. You have all these little groups that are around there, including the idiots here in New York that we had yesterday, who may claim that they're terrorists or whatever. The real battle here is in Afghanistan, and the real battle here is how do we get our troops to have what's necessary.
Robert, you know, it's very clear that even the Democrats are not backing Obama on this until they get more specifics. I mean, detail is needed.
Clearly, the Democrats in the Senate are demanding a plan. Quite frankly, they also were voting out of political fear. They want to have some cover. And President Obama said he's going to produce a plan by the end of the year. It's a complicated issue, but there's a recognition from the Bush administration, from President Bush, who wanted to close Gitmo, to President Obama, this was a failed experiment. So now the issue is moving forward and trying to keep the focus on resolving this and keeping the focus on fighting terrorism.
All right, gentlemen, we'll take a quick moment, and we'll have more with our panel in just a moment. But first, coming up at the top of the hour, No Bias, No Bull, and Roland Martin is in for Campbell Brown. Roland?
Hey, Kitty, we've got the latest developments in the case of 5 Alabama cops caught on tape beating an unconscious suspect. Their attorney joins me live in a few minutes. And wait till you hear her explanation for the officer's actions. Also, President Bush's first Homeland Security Secretary says former Vice President Dick Cheney is wrong when it comes to the debate over how to keep America safe. We're also looking at the new credit card reform law. Will consumers really benefit, or will the big banks still come out ahead? We'll break things down and tell you how to protect yourself. Plus, singer-songwriter John Legend and CNN's very own legend, Larry King, will join us. It's all at the top of the hour. Kitty?
We look forward to it, Roland Martin. Much more with our panel coming up, including the controversy over House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
The entrepreneurial spirit of small business owners is alive and well. But these days, we also know you could use a little help. Intuit QuickBooks software can track every dollar in and out of your business, so you can keep an eye on the bottom line. Nearly 70% of QuickBooks users said it helps them be more profitable. So we're offering every small business in America Intuit QuickBooks Simple Start for free, because we want you to do more than survive. We want you to thrive. Go to QuickBooks.com.
Finally, good news for people with type 2 diabetes or at risk for diabetes. Introducing new Nutrisystem D, the clinically tested program for losing weight and reducing blood sugar.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I lost 100 pounds on Nutrisystem D. When I was first diagnosed with diabetes, that first step was more like a giant leap, till I discovered Nutrisystem D.
In a clinical study, people on Nutrisystem D lost 16 times more weight and reduced their blood sugar 5 times more than those on a hospital-directed plan. Plus, A1C was reduced 0.9%. Choose from over 140 menu options. There's no counting carbs, calories, or points.
I lost 100 pounds and lowered my blood sugar level. Nutrisystem D changed my life.
Mike is one of many who've lost weight and controlled their diabetes with new Nutrisystem D. Backed by 35 years of research and low glycemic index science, Nutrisystem D works. Satisfaction guarantee to your money back. New Nutrisystem D. Lose weight, live better. Call or click today.
CNN next. Nothing's off limits when Roland Martin steps in at 8. Roland Martin on CNN coming up next.
What is it to lead? At PNC, it's doing what most benefits our customers. Whether that's having more certified green buildings than anyone on Earth, creating online banking tools for the next generation, or making a 10-year, $100 million investment in kids. It's how we've always done business, and will for a very long time to come. PNC, leading the way.
flies to Dubai from 6 continents.
Life after graduation, all next week on American Morning.
We are back now with our political panel, and we really have to wade into the Nancy Pelosi controversy. I mean, today she actually categorically refused to answer questions about the statement that she said the CIA lied to her. And Ed, you wrote a commentary. It said, why would a congressional leader pick a fight with an agency that's charged with defeating terrorism? I mean, it was a very...
Well, we all say silly things sometimes, and I think that she got herself into a silly battle, and I think she's got hurt by it. She's not going to lose the speakership. The Democrats have been forced to rally around her, but her president has basically had to make a torture speech. Democrats in the Senate probably voted down Gitmo because of it. And the entire week that Democrats are trying to move another agenda, they had to deal with her. And at the end of the day, she didn't enhance herself. She could have made a quick apology or said, I didn't have my facts right or whatever, but she didn't. And today, basically, a leader to stand up at a press conference, at her press conference, to say, I'm not going to answer questions on this particular subject, makes her just more ridiculous.
Yeah, well, how bad is the damage for Pelosi, and how bad is the damage for the intelligence community? Because there certainly are hard feelings there, too.
They're not happy campers, and I think starting with the president's release of the memos earlier, and they have to do a lot of bad stuff for this country, and historically, and I think to a certain extent, they feel when they brief the Congress, they give them honest briefings.
Look, the controversy, though, is simmering down and is essentially over. It's over for 2 reasons. There were many members of Congress, including the former Republican chair of the Intelligence Committee, Peter Hoekstra, who came forward and said that he had a different impression of CIA briefings than what the CIA reported. And other members of Congress who came forward and said they have different recollections from what the CIA claims they told them. So that's one reason. The other reason this controversy is going to diminish is due to Newt Gingrich. The idea that he would take up the mantle for articulating honor and integrity when he was the speaker who faced the steepest fine in the history of the House of Representatives for unethical behavior. When his party was in power, his own party found him guilty in the Ethics Committee of providing misinformation on a continual basis. So the man defines corruption, incompetence, and deceit as speaker. He's no one to lead an ethics charge.
But Robert, then your point about it fading away is, I mean, it is politicized right now. It is
it's
deeply politicized.
But it's politicized by someone who has no credibility in the argument. So as a consequence, Newt Gingrich's lack of credibility buries the issue.
Miguel.
Look, one thing is to say you were misled by intelligence sources, and another thing is to say that they lied to you. And that's a very, very strong charge that she's made. I don't know that her leadership is certainly damaged. I don't know if she actually is going to survive this, Ed. And frankly, I think she's good. Maybe the Republicans don't want her out because she's good for Republicans. She's making the Democrats look that bad right now.
And the only point I want to make, the person who was in the room with her, who was the chairman of the committee, was Porter Goss. His recollection was what the CIA said. The gentleman you quoted was a chairman later, and he basically wrote a story in the op-ed piece this week that
Well, Peter Hoekstra.
Yeah, he supported the CIA.
I understand that. No one's not supporting the CIA. It's just members of Congress have different impressions. That's why I think this issue ultimately will fade.
All right,
but
gentlemen.
Lie is a strong word.
Lie is a strong. We have to hold it there. Ed Rollins, Miguel Perez, Robert Zimmerman, thank you. Honoring our heroes, we have the story of one Army paratrooper who nearly lost his life fighting Taliban insurgents. And this photo earned one soldier praise from the Secretary of Defense.